Welcome back, my fellow door openers. We are here for possibly what could be the greatest episode I've ever recorded. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it will be. Maybe it won't be. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe there are going to be even better ones in the future. We'll see. But today we are here, and I am here. And I am ready to record on a cryptid that I was familiar with, but not fully familiar with. A cryptid from my own backyard, my old backyard of the Midwestern United States. I think it's still considered Midwest. But yeah, what am I talking about? What am I doing? What's going on today? Today, we are going to talk about a cryptid that it's learning more about it is now, it's up there as one of my favorite cryptids. And I'll explain why once we go a little more into detail. This cryptid came about first appeared, I guess we could say, the mid-1950s. So what am I talking about? It's from the Midwest. It's mid-50s, his first appearance. This cryptid came to me in a fever dream, and I had to learn more about it. I knew it was one of the more popular ones, even with it not having a ton of sightings or backstory. But either way, let's just get into it. Let's hop into it. I'm tired of messing around, tired of stringing you along. And if you're listening to this episode, you already know what it is because the title's right there. We're talking about the Loveland Frogman. So the Loveland Frogman, sometimes known as the Loveland Frog, the Loveland Lizard Man, the Loveland Lizard, things of this nature, has a scientific name, Ranocerectus. Don't know where the scientific name comes from, but either way, it is part of Ohio folklore. What part of Ohio, you ask? No, you didn't ask, but the answer is Loveland, because that's why it's called the Loveland Frogman from Loveland, Ohio. The Loveland Frog is known to live in Claremont County, Ohio. The creature lives in a temperate forest and is able to survive the cold winters of the region without having to hibernate. How do we know this? The internet. The internet tells us everything. It's just this giant wealth of information, and we get to dip into it anytime we want. I think about growing up and how, not to give away how old I am, but I'm old. When I was in middle school, the internet was just becoming a thing. And at that point, you could check your email. Remember there was Navigator and Net Zero and Juno. Oh, what a time to be alive. Net Zero, $0 internet. Eventually they started charging $10 a month. $10 a month for internet. Still, think about that. Put that in your brain. This information's always been there. I just started charging more for it. But yeah, just the fact that there's so much we can look up, and so much is just right there. Like, most people I know have cell phones. And you can just open up a browser and look up anything you want. What a time to be alive. That's all I'm saying. It's just, sometimes it just still blows my mind, the thought of the internet and technology and where we're at right now compared to where we were at 10, 20 years ago. Yeah, it's a lot. And I am happy to be in the midst of it, working side by side with the AI. So yeah, there's that. I don't know where I was going with that, so let's get back to the Loveland Frogman. So according to various legends, the creature was first sighted by a businessman or a traveling salesman driving along an unnamed road late at night in 1955, with some versions of the story specifying the month of May. At approximately 3:30 a.m., a businessman... So sometimes a lot of the people I've heard tell this story say it was an unnamed businessman. But on one of the websites I was on, the businessman is listed with a name, which is Robert Honeycott, Hunnicott. He claimed to have witnessed 3 bipedal quasi-reptilian entities congregating on the side of the road. First of all, okay, bipedal, not the norm. Hanging out in a pair of 3, or hanging out in a group of 3, semi-normal. Quasi-reptilian. I'm not sure what that means. Quasi. It's like they were almost reptilian. Entities congregating by the side of the road. In one story, the motorist is heading out of the Branch Hill neighborhood when he shines his car's headlights on the huge figures. The trio are erected on their hind legs and just standing in the middle of the road. The man honks his horn, the figures perk up, they twist their necks around. All 3 look at the driver with leathery skin and frog faces. All right. The other version, there's another version. Another version says the motorist spots the creatures under the Loveland Bridge, one of many going over the Little Miami River. This is in Ohio, not Florida. So just keep that in mind. I know you'll hear Little Miami River, and when I hear Little Miami, I think of the Miami Dolphins and Dan Marino, the best quarterback there ever was in the league. I really don't care about sports that much, but when I was a kid, there was Dan Marino, there was David Robinson. I don't know if I had anybody in baseball, but there was Dan Marino, and there was David Robinson, and there was Larry Bird too. But once the 3 of those stopped playing the sport, is when I stopped caring about sports. Outside of Madden and some of the EA sports games. But that's when I stopped watching sports and collecting sports cards. Strangely enough, similar to the time I started collecting Magic cards. We can't go off on this train right now. We've derailed. It's time to go back. Which brings me to the second version of the motorist spots the creature under the Loveland Bridge, one of many going over the Little Miami River. He honks his horn. The creatures shot out from under the bridge. One lands on his hood and croaks, and the driver passes out. So I don't think we've mentioned anything about the size. The majority of the size, when the later reports bring up the size, but yeah, about a 4 foot. They're about 4 foot tall. They are bipedal frogs. But yeah, if I'm driving down the road and even if I honk, why are you honking? That's my first thought. He's honking at these creatures under the bridge. Again, a lot of this version doesn't make any sense to me. The creature shot out from under the bridge, one lands on his hood and croaks, and the driver passes out. I don't think I've ever experienced anything that's made me... As far as I remember, I've never experienced anything that's made me pass out from fear. But having a 3-foot frog land on my car, that might do it. That's a little 4 foot. Sorry, 4 foot frog land on the hood of my car and croak at me. It's up there. I think I'd be scared. I think I would just speed off, hoping it would just slide off. That's the noise a frog makes when it's sliding off your car. I know this because there was one time. No, we were driving. It was late at night. It was rainy. We were heading to a casino. And it was the only time I've ever experienced this, but the road was just covered in frogs. Like, and this was, we were going about 45 probably, or 50. It was a side highway, not like a highway or something that was headed out to the casino outside of town. It was just the weirdest experience. Just like all you saw in the headlights was frogs everywhere. And obviously we kind of just slowed down and took our time. I don't even want to think about how many frogs. Yeah, let's not even think about that. But yeah. So I imagine all these frogs all over the road. In my mind, this is what I'm picturing, all these frogs all over the road. And then this giant frog jumps up from under the bridge and just lands on my car. But in my mind, he's also wearing a fedora, and then he reaches through the window and smacks me. But that's where my mind goes with it. Either way, so the second one lands on the hood of the car, croaks, and the driver passes out. The third version, which is my personal favorite, and the one I hear probably most often when I was listening to podcasts and reading articles, trying to learn more about the Loveland Frogman. The motorist pulls over. He gets out of his car and spots the creatures. In my mind, I would think he spotted the creatures, then he pulled over, got out of his car. But either way, all three are conversing animatedly. The man pulls his car to the curb and observed these creatures for what he estimated to be about 3 minutes. Just as the man was about to steal away, one of the creatures suddenly held what the witness could only describe as a wand above its head. The anonymous source further claimed that sparks spewed out of the end of the device, and he left post-haste. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why this is one of my new favorite cryptids, is because there is a frog, a 4-foot frog, in possession of a wand that emits sparks. I mean, I could end this there and be like, yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm into this. This is what I like. But yeah, up to this point, I don't think I can think of another cryptid I've talked about or done a podcast on or done research on that had I don't want to say it's a weapon, because it could have just been like a little sparkler, like light it up, a little spark shoot off. But my hope is that it was not just a sparkler, and this frog has magical powers and knows how to use a wand and emit sparks from it, which opens up the possibility of this frog being able to control electricity, which I am even more into. But yeah, this is when I learned about the wand. Needless to say, I will be getting a tattoo of the Loveland Frogman now, because everything about it's awesome. I was thinking about doing the Hypnotoad with the wand, and just yeah. But either way, yes, this is, that's pretty cool, alright? Even if it was just a random person on the side of the road that was 4 foot tall with a wand that emitted sparks, I would still be way into the story and want to know more and want to believe. Yeah. So, that is the initial sighting, the one that got the Loveland Frogman on the map, that made people aware of it. The Loveland Frogman has had 4 sightings. One in 1955, 2 in 1972, and 1 in 2016. The 2016 sighting has video evidence associated with it, but is likely a hoax due to its location in a city. I don't know. Check the video out for yourself, see what you think. It's on the YouTubes. It's all over the internet. It's this wonderful, wonderful source of information that has everything we could ever need. Yeah. So let's jump forward to March 3rd of 1972. Almost 20 years after, nearly 17 years after, actually. So yeah, we got a bit of a gap here between sightings. At about 1 a.m. on March 3rd, 1972, a police officer who understandably chose to remain anonymous. What? Scratch that. We know his name. At about 1 a.m. on March 3rd, 1972, a police officer named Ray Shockey was traveling along Riverside Road heading towards Loveland when he saw something that would forever change his life. The officer claimed that he was driving slowly due to the substantial amount of ice on the road when he saw what looked like a dog by the curb. Suddenly, the animal darted in front of the cruiser, forcing the officer to slam on the brakes in order to avoid a potential collision with the creature. Once the police cruiser came to a halt, its headlights fell upon the prone animal. At this point, the officer describes something that seems literally too bizarre to be true. In the span of seconds, this crouched, frog-like creature stood on two legs, stared back at the policeman, then scrambled over the guardrail and scurried down the embankment, finally disappearing into the Ohio River. Alright, this thing's 4 foot tall. It's climbing over a guardrail. It's looking back and making eye contact. Let's just let all that soak in. It's also 1 a.m, so he's probably working overnights. He's used to some weird things, but this, oh man, this takes the cake. The officer in question described the creature as being 3 to 4 feet tall and weighing in the area of 50 to 70 pounds. He also claimed that its skin had a leathery texture and that the animal's features resembled those of a frog or lizard. Another officer investigated the scene later that evening. He saw no sign of the creature, but reported that there were distinct scratch marks on the guardrail where the animal purportedly crossed. So let's let this sink in. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. We're driving down the road. And there in the road we see this thing we think might be a dog. And then it proceeds to get on its hind legs, look back at us, climb over the railing, and then hop in the Ohio River. 50 to 75 pounds. I mean, it's a decent amount. What's a thing of shingles, like 80 pounds maybe? I don't know. So this thing comes at you, it's like a bag of shingles jumping on you. So anyway, the second sighting occurred 2 weeks later while police officer Mark Matthews had an encounter of his own. According to the report, Officer Matthews, while driving in Loveland, spotted that what he believed to be an injured animal laying on the pavement. Matthews climbed out of his cruiser with the intention of removing the carcass from the already ice-slicked road, when the creature abruptly lurched upwards into a crouched position. Taken aback by the frogman's reptilian visage, Matthews unholstered his revolver and took a shot at the creature, which then proceeded to hobble over to the side of the road and step over the guardrail, all the while keeping a watchful eye on the trigger-happy officer. Matthews, Frogman, matched the first officer's description down to the last detail, with the exception of a tail, which was absent in earlier reports. In the years which had followed these events, Officer Matthews has reneged somewhat on his tale. He now claims that the animal in question was nothing more than a large reptile which escaped from its owner. He further insists that the only reason he shot at the creature was to help confirm a fellow officer's story, a story which was, of course, being met with predictable skepticism by their superiors. Whether or not Matthews' change of heart was inspired by ridicule or the fading memory of an event from which he was 30 years removed, the fact remains that his own testimony counter indicates that his later retraction in a 2001 email interview, Officer Mark Matthews, now retired, explained that the incident was habitually blown out of proportion. He stated that it was and is no monster. It was not leathery or had wet matted fur. It was not 3 to 5 feet tall. It did not stand erect. The animal I saw was obviously some type of lizard that someone had as a pet that either got too large for its aquarium, escaped by accident, or they simply got tired of it. It was less than 3 feet in length, ran across the road, and was probably blinded by my headlights. It presented no aggressive action. Matthews attempted to shoot the creature. It presented no aggressive action. Matthews attempted to shoot the creature in order to back up the account on of his partner's sighting a few nights prior, but the lizard escaped, most likely to die from its injury or from the bitter freezing cold. This one's got it escaping, which this is the first time I've heard of it escaping. All the other times I've heard it, he was shot, put in the trunk, shown to Shockey to confirm that it was the same thing he had seen, and Shockey says yes, it was the same thing. So that is a little bit of contradictory. I'm not sure which one this was. I believe this was off the... I'm not sure which one that was from. So either the lizard got shot, went away. The Frogman, let's be honest here, the Frogman with his magical wand got shot and ran away, or there was a lizard that was put in the trunk and it was shown to him. So I'm not sure. These are two, like I said, two different stories. But yeah, either way, they retracted their statement, trying to, which all the podcasts I was listening to was wondering, their obvious conjecture was that he did it because of all of the backlash they were getting from the superiors and everything else, just trying to make them not sound like they were crazy, but also wondering why it took so long for them to do that. Yeah, like 30 years earlier, 30 years later, why would you go back on everything and change your story? Either way, they shot the Frogman, claiming it was a lizard. So that's our 1972 sighting. Jump forward to 2016, a time when a lot of people believe the world ended, and we are just on a reworking of everything right now. We've entered the Matrix. 2016 was the last year we were all alive. Is that true? I don't know. Somebody said it was. The internet, it's just out there full of things. But either way, 2016. Why is this year important? Because in 2016, there's a release of a video game that set the world on fire, that had more people outside doing things, being out and about, being among nature as we were meant to be more often. And what was that game? Pokemon Go. Why is 2016 also significant? Because on May 28th, 2016, a western lowland gorilla by the name of Harambe was shot down in cold blood while trying to protect a child that had invaded his space. Rest in power, brother. Why is 2016 also important? Because it is the most recent sighting of the Loveland Frogman. Sam Jacobs said he was playing Pokemon Go in mid-August of 2016 near Congregation Beth Adam Synagogue on Loveland Madeira Road. Jacobs said he had crossed train tracks to the banks of Lake Isabella when he spotted something strange. We saw a huge frog near the water, not in the game. This was an actual giant frog, Jacobs told WLWT. Then the thing stood up and walked on its hind legs. I realize this sounds crazy, but I swear on my grandmother's grave, this is the truth. Jacobs claimed the frog stood around 4 feet tall, sending dark photos of the creature to support his claim. Jacob says he doesn't know what to think of his sighting. Not sure if it was a frogman or just a giant frog, he said. Either way, I've never seen anything like it. And that is the one that does have the video online that you can look up. It's like a 15-second video. There are pictures. Looks creepy. Kind of looks fake, but looks creepy. So, what are some possible explanations here? The University of Cincinnati folklore professor Edgar Slotkin compared the Loveland Frog to Paul Bunyan, the creature gaining certain notoriety as a folk legend in the same vein as Paul, Old Stormalong, and the Chupacabra. Slotkin studied the phenomenon and even graphed the sightings. He noted that the stories have not only been passed down through generations, but the most reports of the Loveland Frogman come in predictable cycle. It's like the Jeepers Creepers guy. Comes in cycles. With the discovery of the iguana, the whole mystery seemed to be solved. So, when he says an iguana, when the officer says iguana, it seems like it was solved, except Matthew's story only explained the 1972 sightings. What about the 3 frogmen spotted in 1955? Skeptics point out that the creature from the Black Lagoon came out in 1954, so Americans had amphibious lake monsters on the brain at the time, but if you look at the creature from the Black Lagoon and the description of the frogman, they do not compare. And the creature from the Black Lagoon does not have a magic sparking wand. Yeah. And the frog people are only 3.5 feet tall, so close to 4 feet tall. Seems a little short compared to the creature from the Black Lagoon, which I'm pretty sure was around 6 foot. In other words, many believe there are still questions left unanswered when it comes to the Loveland Frog. The cryptid certainly continues to spark Cincinnatians' cultural imaginations. There is a lack of precedent for a bipedal frog. Additionally, the frogmen live in Ohio, which is a very human-populated region in the United States of America. The creature is only known from one specific region, and there is seemingly no Native American folklore of this creature. There is no video evidence that did not come from a suspicious encounter. Aren't all encounters suspicious? And the creature seems to have unusual, perhaps supernatural abilities. The Loveland Frogman is also emblematic of the watersheds and wetlands that make up many of Ohioans' backyard. Ohio does have some of the most abundant plant biodiversity in the United States, containing 32,950 acres of national parks. With this much wildlife, it makes sense that a lonely, tired salesman driving on a night might spot a frogman or two trekking the riverfront, among coyotes, opossums, and hellbenders. Which, if you don't know what a hellbender is, it's basically a salamander. Look it up. Looks like a salamander. In May of 2014, it showed up in pop culture when the Loveland Frog legend was made into a musical titled Hot Damn, It's the Loveland Frog. In 2019, artist Dog Died created a song, Hot Damn, I Love the Loveland Frog, which I believe I listened to today while I was going through and listening to different podcasts. Popped up on Spotify as one of the options. So yeah, that is our story of the Loveland Frogman. That's the information I have. Like I said, there's some information out there. I will include in the show notes some of the references I use to look up and learn more about the Loveland Frogman. I don't know. It seems, like I said, he's on my list of favorite cryptids now, because he's got his little sparky wand, which I'm all about that. Little frog with a spark wand. What do you think? Does this seem like something that, to me, does it seem like it could exist? Does it seem My issue is that there's only 4 sightings. And I don't know if we can consider the one sighting a sighting of the Frogman, since he shot it and it was a iguana or a large lizard or large reptile. But I don't know. That's I tend to believe that was a cover up trying to help his buddy, since his buddy was probably getting getting a little pokes and jabs in from his fellow officers, making fun of him for saying he saw that. It's 1950s. Probably thought he was a little. No, it was 70s. Never mind. I wish there were more sightings. But am I going with? And if I'll show, there was a picture that the officer had drawn up of like what he'd seen on the road. And if you look at that picture, it definitely has a very with the artist rendition, with the sketch artist rendition. It makes me want to believe that the officer saw what he saw that night, and to have something like climbing over a guardrail and looking back at you, making eye contact. I don't know. I'm leaning towards I'm liking the Frogman. The Loveland Frogman is on my list now of favorites. So, what do you think? Do you think he was real Frogman? Do you think it was just a large lizard that was in Ohio? An escaped pet. Doesn't make sense to me. Something's not adding up here. Numbers aren't right. I am leaning towards Frogman. If you watch the video of the Pokemon Go Frogman, yeah, it's like, whatever. But yeah, I think it's. I'm going with I like the Frogman. Frogman's real. The Frogman lives. Leave him alone. Stop shooting him. Didn't do no harm. He's just trying to live his life out there in Ohio. I mean, it's in Ohio. I mean, like, give the guy a break. He's, for all we know, he's witness protection right now. Trying to, probably some freak accident from New Mexico, or, I don't know, where frogs prevalent. I don't know. I'm the South. Some freak accident, and they're major. I don't know. Some government mess up. Who knows? I mean, there's a lot going on out there right now. There's, or you know what? It could just be a really big frog that it's bipedal. We find new, interesting species every day. I don't know. I like it. I like frogs. I'm a frog man myself. You know, not like a literal frog man, but I'm a man that likes frogs. So I give the Loveland Frogman a thumbs up. I'm down with it. I'm here for it. I hope you're here for it too, and I hope you enjoyed learning as I learned about the Loveland Frog. Yeah. Let me know what you thought about it. Yeah, shoot me a message on Instagram or to dotupodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear if you've had an encounter with the Loveland Frogman and just haven't reported it. Check out the socials, as always. That is my go-to end of the episode thing. Just check out Linktree DOTU Podcast. It's linktr.ee/DOTU Podcast. You'll find all the socials there. Find all the places you can reach me. You'll find all the places you can listen. You can watch. You can... everything you need to know about this podcast as far as what's online and out there is available at that link. linktr.ee/DOTU Podcast. I am very excited to announce that I got my first Patreon patron. It is the man, the myth, the legend, Sean Patrick. I am very thankful for your donation. I enjoy making this either way, but when I get patrons or donations of any kind, I am extremely thankful. all the money that goes into it does go back to the podcast towards recording items, towards items to make the recordings better. Yeah, we're two things right now. I will probably be trying to upgrade my mic situation and upgrading my camera. Those are the two big ticket items right now. Throw them on my Amazon wish list, which is also on the Linktree link. But that is, thank you so much for being a patron. Yeah, feel free. Anyone can join and be a patron as well on patreon.com/ I believe it's DOTU. But again, it is in the Linktree. You can access Patreon, my Patreon page through the Linktree. All that said, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with a friend. Share it with somebody you know that likes podcasts, that likes cryptids, that likes Ohio, that likes frogs. I don't know, anything. Anybody that likes anything that was brought up today, share it with them. But we'll go ahead and close it up here. I will, as always, keep an eye to, and I say this, and I struggle with this, because in the past couple weeks, I have caught and released so many spiders that I didn't notice till I looked up. So, I too need to look up more often. We do not look up often enough. So keep an eye to the sky. If you happen to be driving over one of the many bridges over the Little Miami River, and you happen to hear a large ribbit, and maybe a couple of sparks, it's either time to get moving fast or pull the car over, because you're about to meet the Loveland Frogman. Until next time.